All right. Well, thank you for reaching out to me. Let me know what questions I can help you answer now.
Thank you. So I kind of wanted to learn more about what the environment was like at Harvard, specifically for the social and behavioral sciences program. Is it more competitive, or were you able to collaborate a lot with the other peers in your cohort?
Yeah. So I would definitely say not a competitive environment at all. I feel like sometimes that can be a myth of, PhD programs or a myth of Ivy League schools, et cetera. But I would say, at least in my department, as well as other departments too, but there was definitely way more of a sense of collaboration than competition. I mention this a lot to people, but I feel like what happens when you're in a PhD program is everyone is on their own specific journey, and we all research very, very different topics. So, in a sense, it's almost like comparing apples to oranges because, even though, let's say, me and my colleague, let's say I do research in tobacco, my colleague does research in vaccine hesitancy, completely different fields. There's like a different sort of like, for me to publish like a first author paper or a couple of them in the tobacco field is very different maybe for my colleague to do that in their field. So in a sense, it's really hard to like compare. And I think that removes a little bit of that like competitive element. I mean, of course, there's always the like, oh, like they're doing this and I'm not, like that's going to exist anywhere. But overall, I would say there's a very collaborative nature. People want to help each other because it's like you're all struggling through, not struggling, but you're making your way through, an intense PhD dissertation process. And I would say that the support is there, and people want to provide that support because we're all kind of like in it together.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really great to hear. And I was also kind of wondering what your work-life balance was like as part of the program.
Yeah, and that's a great question. And it's so important that you're asking that now, and thinking about that. And I would say that this is something that's like like has nothing to do with the fact that I went to Harvard and SBS and that program, but just me personally, no matter where I would have gone, I just value work-life balance so much. I draw very strict boundaries, and I think of myself as very much a like work hard, rest hard kind of person. So I really buckle down and I get things done, but then I leave a lot of room to breathe, enjoy, spend time with family and friends, exercise, do the things I love, make these YouTube videos, etc. And I will say that like sometimes students in my program did complain about the workload, especially in the first 2 years, where the course load is sort of the main focus of your doctoral training. And there were a lot of complaints about, we have nothing, we have no time except to like work on our problem sets and go to class. And then on top of that, we're still expected to teach and RA and everything. Like, how do you do it? So there is a little bit of that, like kind of like feeling floating around sometimes, especially in the first 2 years when you do have a full course load. Um, but the nice thing is that the department has been listening to students' needs and students' mental health concerns. And in just the 4 years that I was there, I would say the program has like transformed itself. Like some of the more difficult and demanding courses, they've made a lot of adjustments to make them more sort of, I don't want to use the word easier, but like more like pass fail, and exams are open note and take home. Like it's more about the learning than being like examined and having to memorize and all that stuff. So I would say that um the program listens to students and listens to their needs and actually makes changes, which is really great. And then for me on a personal level, what I would just do, like kind of on top of that, is like I always schedule my like I always schedule the stuff that I need for balance first. So like my workouts, my time with family, my me time, that comes first, and then all the school stuff then comes around it. So, I'm I make it a priority, and I'm like, okay, I have to go to my 5 o'clock yoga class. I don't care what it is that is trying to, you know, wiggle its way into my schedule. I'm not going to let it happen. So, and that's kind of how I feel like I've found balance throughout the past 4 years and even now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really helpful. And I don't remember which video exactly you mentioned this, but you talked about having like a ton of publications throughout your time at Harvard. I think you mentioned like around 20 or something like that. But you also mentioned that it was mostly because you took the initiative to like look for these opportunities. So I was wondering, how do you go about kind of finding all these research opportunities?
This is a very great question and foreshadowing of a video I plan to hopefully create in the future. That's long. Right now, I'm answering more application questions, but I'm hoping once application season is over, I can make a video more dedicated to how to acquire first author publications. And I would say that, yes, it does take a lot of initiative in order to get these first author publications. And it can be kind of like awkward sometimes. It's not as straightforward as you working on a project and it's very clear, okay, if you do X, Y, and Z, you get to become first author. It's not always that clearly mapped out, and it takes forming relationships with mentors, etc., to do that. But what I've learned is that many professors, scientists, researchers, they're usually sitting on a lot of data that they themselves do not have the time to write up. And what's great is usually like, if they have some sort of survey or project or anything, they're trying to get multiple papers out of sort of one study or one project. So there's always opportunities to collaborate. And it's sort of just figuring out where your interests align with what data / projects that mentor has available. And then making it clear that you want to take the leadership on writing a first author paper and making that very clear from the beginning. And then I think just being a PhD student by default, they know that you need first author papers to, as a marker of success. So they're always keeping that in mind, like, okay, that's something to, give you to work on if you are working on a project together. So I don't know if that answers your question like super straightforward, but because my advisor and we had overlapping interests, but his sort of population of focus was more on like older adults in low income housing and smoking cessation, whereas I really wanted to dive more into adolescent vaping prevention. So I still collaborated with my advisor on some of his projects, but then I went out and found other mentors who were at like Boston Children's Hospital or like a pediatrician at Mass General, and they had projects that we collaborated on to do more adolescent focused work.
Wow, that's so cool. And I'm also looking forward to watching your video when it comes out.
It's still a work in I haven't started yet, but it's on my back burner to make something like that soon.
My last question was more about kind of like future prospects after the PhD program. I'm really interested in going into government, and I kind of wanted a PhD to get a leadership position in government. But I know that like a lot of people go into academia instead or industry. So in your cohort, were there a lot of people going into government or a significant portion? And kind of do you recommend that I go down this PhD path?
Yeah. So one, yes, still go for the PhD. I think it definitely helps with getting leadership roles in like CDC, NIH, that kind of government. Is that kind of what you're thinking? Yeah. So I would say that a lot of my classmates, both in SBS and outside, they either went into a postdoc or went for an industry position right after graduating. So I don't really know what they're doing kind of like next. I would say the people in the cohorts above me, the ones that I'm still in touch with, they're all in academia. But I think the important thing is that most people do a postdoc, and your postdoc is like extra protected time of training. That's what I'm doing right now. and it's not tying you to academia. So, I mean, it is really helpful for academia, but a lot of people will do a postdoc and then maybe go into industry, or they will do a postdoc and then do what you're saying, find a leadership position in government. And sometimes they have a very similar promotion structure as like some academic positions too, if you want to do a more research type role. So, I definitely think that you can either, do a postdoc to like boost your CV and get more experience and figure out exactly what you want to do, and then go into a government position, or go into a government position after graduating if that works out for you too.
Okay, thank you so much.
And we have time. You can ask a couple more
Okay.
questions.
I guess I just have one last question to ask. I've heard that some people suggested online like attaching a cover letter to your statement of purpose. I guess would you recommend doing that?
What would you say in your cover letter that's different from yours? Also, like your statement of purpose is like they ask, like it's like there's a word limit. So if you attach a cover letter, they're like, you're technically not supposed to do that. I don't know. I wouldn't go doing something different. I think it wouldn't hurt your application. I just don't think people will review it if it's like not supposed to be there. And I don't know, things have changed. Like I know when I applied, there was no personal statement, and now there's a personal statement. So like if you're submitting a personal statement and a statement of purpose, you probably don't need another cover letter on top of all of that.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. There's
Um,
always that little paragraph in your statement of purpose where you tailor it to the school anyway. And I would say that's probably like the cover letter of your statement of purpose.
got it. Okay. Thank you so much. Actually, is it okay if I ask one more question?
Yeah, we have time. Yeah, don't worry.
So I was just wondering, this might be a little bit of a silly question. I was just wondering if schools may like look at your LinkedIn or like any other like social media that you have, and like if I should like kind of change stuff like before applying.
That's not silly at all, and that's something I think about a lot. And as someone, so my answer is probably not, but I'm someone who likes to cover all of my bases. So I wouldn't get to the point where I like hide all my social media or deactivate it. I wouldn't do that, but I would just do a sweep and make sure there's like nothing on there that you really wouldn't want someone to see. I mean, you're over the age of 21. So if there's people like there's like pictures of me like holding a nice drink on a rooftop bar. Like that's fine. Like, if they don't take you because of that, that's very strange. Like you're probably gonna be like at a rooftop drinking at the interview. So those pictures are fine, but like I would say like anything that you, like I said, use your discretion that you wouldn't want someone to see. And if it happens to be on social media, I would just hide those images. But I don't know what those would be. I mean, yeah, that's what I would say.
Got it. Thank you so much. And then luckily I was able to meet with three professors before applying, but for one of the professors, I feel like their research interests maybe don't fit mine as much as another professor who I didn't have the chance to meet with. Would you suggest like I just mentioned the professors who I have the best research fit with, or the professors I met with?
I mean, just be honest. Like in your personal statement, you can say, like, I met with Professor X and Professor Y. We had a great conversation. I also know the research of Professor Z would be a great fit with me as well for X, Y, and Z reasons.
Mhm.
Because of this, robust faculty at this department that would support my work. This is why I want to come to this program. So I would just say it as it is. Don't like make a big deal. Like, oh, I didn't talk to this person, but their interests are more, but like, just say it how it happened. And then say this is, and then that's why I want to come to your program.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. All right. Well, I'm here. If you have any more questions, feel free to follow up or email.